it's Will.
And James. This is our recap for Amazing Race Season 33, Episode 7, Gently Down the Stream. Hello, everyone. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. We hope you have a great weekend. We are so excited to talk about this episode. And thanks for checking into the Pit Stop. Before we talk about it, though, we do have a very special guest back by popular demand, the one and only Leo.
Hey, everyone. It's Leo at the Pit Stop. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, we're so excited to talk about this episode with you. And honestly, we loved having you and Alana last time recap with us. And people were even tweeting, can you please get them back? Can you please get them back?
Well, we're so very excited. Hard to book. I'm kind of amazed my schedule was free at 10 on Sunday. But I had to cancel some big ticket items, actually. So this is for you two, boys.
Oh my gosh, well, thank you.
And everyone out there.
I want to know, Leo, what were your overall thoughts on this past week's episode?
All right, so definitely a fun one. I love a food challenge. This one was, I think, up there historically for grossest food challenges. And I also think, I remember at the beginning of this season, we were thinking, I think we talked, and we were thinking, like, are these teams really that competitive? Like, not that they weren't strong, like capable, but like, were they really going for it? And I think at this episode, there was no doubt they're serious. They're cutthroat. They're going all out. They're leaving it all on the table. And that was really fun to see.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode too. There's a lot of fun elements to it. I want to give some shout outs really quick to Lav and Ray and Elena, and of course, Lauren, Ashley Beck. Hi, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're having a great day. Will, what were your overall thoughts on this episode? You're like, how honest do I want to be here?
I don't know. I need drama.
This is a safe space for honesty. Lay it all out.
I just need some more drama between the teams. Like, they're not like being forced to compete against each other or think about like taking each other out or who's strong. It's just, there's no U-turns, there's no yields, there's no like element.
No U-turns.
The race that I like enjoy.
I think
so. It's kind of forced them to continue to work together. The top of the pack every episode has worked together, which I don't mind. But then even the bottom of the pack is working together.
Right. Yeah. I think with the U-turn too, I know when we interviewed Akbar and Sheridan last week, I know Akbar was even saying, I wish there would have been a U-turn. And I think it would be able to like force the team's hand to like really, I mean, I'm sure there's camaraderie among the teams just because of this 19-month pit stop, but I also want to see a little bit more competitiveness from these teams. I don't know.
Well, that's just because we like strategy, but also like
not everyone thinks like
I think that if I got as far as Akbar and Sherry did in the race, got eliminated, and there was no U-turn, and I'd watched any seasons from previous seasons, I would have felt bummed that like I didn't have that chance to yield to U-turn. So I totally agree. I mean, I also love the strategy of the race. It's not just about like seeing the locations, even if that's like number one, like what makes the race are those moments. Another thing that I think Alana mentioned when we were watching is that because the teams are like so sort of intense about cutthroat. Okay, Ray. We can talk about that. Well, what we were noticing, Mike. All right. What we were noticing is that the teams were just doing it like when they jump into the dam, when they were eating the worms, like there was no one who really was like Scott and Brooke, like cannot do this thing, or like, season after season, someone is just like, I can't do it. Like they sit there for 15 minutes. It's exciting to see teams just going for it. Maybe takes away a little bit of that like fun of watching someone do something that absolutely horrifies them.
Right, the drama of it all.
The cutthroat, I will say, Ray, the cutthroat comment, I guess what I mean is like I've loved seeing Raquel and Kayla twice now make a little mini alliance and then be like, bye. So, I mean, it's all relative. Like, I very much agree. Like, if we're talking about cutthroat, you got it right here. But like, it's good to see some claws come out.
I agree. Starting off this episode, we see that Kim and Penn and Raquel and Kayla are the first team to leave at 8 a.m. They're still in France, and they open their clue, which tells them that they're going to be having to drive. And I loved the cars that they were driving in. They're going to have to be driving to, I believe, this like lighthouse on an overlook where they're going to have to eat some Casu marzu, which is known as maggot cheese. So disgusting. This was honestly like one of my biggest fears going into our season, Leo. Is like I did not want to have to eat anything gross. And when we were in Kazakhstan going through the meat market the entire time, I was like, it's going to be a roadblock, and we're going to have to eat like a tray of meat like they did in season 7, where they had to eat the, pig intestines, the tarantulas, the scorpions. I was just horrified. So this was so gross to me.
I was counting on a food challenge going into the Kazakhstan meat market. Like, that was our whole strategy, was to just pass everyone at the meat market.
I actually was surprised that there wasn't, because we had only done the detour, and then we did what is it called?
The route
info challenge with the yurts. And I was like, oh, there's going to be one more thing that we have to do. It's going to be a roadblock, and it'll be eating at the meat market. But we never had to.
Also could have been eating the cow brains.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I would have done it. And I told James this. I said, I'll eat anything, but as long as I just like immediately start doing it and don't think about it, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like the beignets.
Look at it, I'll be like, ugh, gross. Not be able to do it.
Mind over matter is really what it's all about. And I think I would have asked the guy who was sitting there if I could have had a swig of that wine, because there was wine sitting on the table. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. But on the way to this overlook where they had to eat the cheese, Raquel and Kayla decide to let Kim and Penn kind of lead the way, which I thought was brilliant. And then also we saw Penn's like childhood French come into play here. And I know on our season, that curse was if you speak the language, you didn't really do well or you got eliminated. And I was just like, Penn and Kim, they're going to carry out this curse and it's going to backfire. But they didn't seem to have any bad luck during this leg at all.
They're real strong. Yeah, I think so. I did a little research into this cheese. Can we stick on that topic for a minute?
Yes, please. That's what you found.
So you start with pecorino, which I love. You leave it out in like room temperature, or rather like sunlight. You introduce the little worms to, I think, lay eggs on the cheese, and then the eggs hatch. The acid from the maggot's digestive system breaks down the cheese's fats, makes it very soft, and it'll contain thousands of maggots by the time you eat it. Now, apparently it's illegal in the EU. So, like, that's a big question for me. Like, there's a black market on Sardinia of like creating this cheese, selling it, eating it. It's the culture. Health concerns. It's possible for the larvae to survive the stomach acid and remain in the intestine. And yeah, it's been outlawed. There are heavy fines in the EU. So I'm just kind of curious how the race pulled this off.
Literally.
Wow.
Of course, Phil didn't say any of these details in his little spiel about.
Oh, and none of it's illegal in the US either. One other thing that was interesting is that according to a rabbi who they found and quoted on Wikipedia, it can be kosher provided that all the ingredients are kosher and animal rennet is not used. And rennet is a stomach juice that is sometimes used for food cooking. So if you were worried about any of these contestants keeping kosher, do not worry.
Oh my God.
Right?
So it's like you actually eat it with the maggots in it, like always. It's like that's like normal. It's not like, oh, wait for the maggots to die. It's no, there will be maggots in this.
Well, they were moving when he like cut it up and like handed them a plate. They like zoomed in and they were no.
There are ways of eating it. like there are ways of killing the maggots. Like you can put the whole thing in a plastic bag, they'll suffocate, and then you can remove them. But real ones eat it with the maggots alive.
Real ones. The real MVPs do that. Ew. I feel like if we were there, if it's part of the local thing to do or try, I think I would do it. I would just give it a try. But on the race, I feel like starting a leg with an eating challenge, it's kind of disgusting. I feel like it would put me out for the rest of the leg. I would be nauseous. I would just be like so disgusted and grossed out. Like,
yeah,
I would rather end a leg with food than
I would try to
leg.
chew it a lot, I think.
Yeah, make sure all those bites are just really
out. I would do it. There's no question I would do it, but it's a rough one.
It was gross.
Everybody's like, it's really dry, and I'm like, what?
Maybe with a glass or a swig of
the
wine,
maggot juices
it wasn't
are not
so bad.
Oh god.
Well, Kim and Penn end up missing the turn, which obviously allows Raquel and Kayla to slip by. Raquel and Kayla take the lead, and as they were leaving this task, there was that debate with Kim and Penn of like, are Raquel and Kayla going to wait for us? And of course, Raquel and Kayla waited. So once again, teams are sort of working together, whether there's a word alliance attached to it or not. They're still helping, waiting for each other. No one really seemed to struggle too much with the cheese task. It seemed pretty straightforward. It was just swallow, get it down, and you're good to go. And once teams were able to, get that snack down, they went to their snack, their little snack. For the next task was their detour, and this was a task between two options of row your boat or gently down the stream. In row your boat, teams had to fish and then paddle a transparent kayak to search the water for 10 matching fish that they'll collect and then exchange for their next clue. And gently down the stream, teams will have to hop on a 15-minute Aquavision boat ride to observe 10 metal fish. That way, then they'll have to look through a booklet and choose from which slip had the right order of fish that they saw in order to get their next clue. Leo, what do you think you and Alana would have done for this detour? Also, I don't know about you, but triggering to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, literally. James, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Is there any way you can replay that tall, fluffy man handing the clue?
Yes, of
literally.
course.
I thought he was a mannequin, no emotion.
Here we go.
Well, we're watching. Yeah, I thought he was a mannequin too. As I was watching it just now.
And then his arm lifted, and I was like, "Oh, animatronic."
He lives. So definitely reminiscent. Here we go. Yes.
He took his job so seriously. He's like,
I mean, he looks super comfortable in that diving suit. I think we probably would have done the submarine challenge. Like just adding because either way, it's like a memory activity, and adding the element of rowing together, like that can go either way. Like Alana and I haven't done that much like kayaking or rowing, certainly not when we were in a hurry. And yeah, so I mean, kayaking, like classic Amazing Race, there's always kayaking here or there, and half the teams just have a lot of trouble with it. Yeah, but I don't know if that would have been the right choice. I don't know if we always made the right choices.
And I think I said this when we did it on the Amazing Races Instagram, but I really wanted to see another team do the kayak because since they struggled so much, would it have been easier for a different team like Lulu and Lala or Raquel and Kayla to do that, because they're, I would assume, a little less heavy than those two really buff guys that they're sinking. So I would have liked to see another team do it just to see how it actually would have played out.
But also it could have been like every single one of those kayak boats could have been different, like we experienced with the motors in Trinidad. People know, like some of those little motorboats going to the pit stop in Tobago had two functioning motors. Some of them had one mostly functioning motor. And it's like, because I was looking at them and so I did like some water sports growing up, like canoeing, kayaking, rowing. And so like my family, we were watching with family, and everyone was like, that is a low canoe. Like, what is going on there? Like
this far from the water line.
Right. And my initial reaction, because you always try to like explain like you always try to like I always try to come up with an explanation that like makes something make sense, even though the truth is on Amazing Racer in general, sometimes things don't make sense, right? But my first thought was, oh, it's got like a clear bottom. It sits really low in the water. That's just must be the way this kind of boat is. And then like 30 seconds later, they're upside down. But when they finally flipped it, it didn't look like there was too much water inside, and they were just as low.
Literally.
So I don't know, but it would have been interesting to see like any other team in the same boat. Are those guys even that big though? I mean, I know they're like muscular.
I don't know. To me, they just feel and they look dense, like muscle. They just look like dense.
Can we get one of them out here? All right, come on out, boys.
Yeah.
Can you?
Let's add them to the chat right now.
Oh my god. I was incredibly shocked at how low the boat was to the water the whole time, even when they left the beach.
Right. Like there could have literally been a leak. Like I believe they were splashing water in, but like I'm not totally sure that was on them.
Those boats could have also not been made for the ocean. They could have been used for like little river cruise that they have on the island.
Well, one thing I was thinking of when they were struggling is I think we would have struggled too, just because we're both over 6 feet, and I feel like they're dense. We're just big guys too, and I think that would have caused it. Yeah, like it would have been a hot mess.
Gary and D'Angelo.
Oh my God, Gary and D'Angelo and those, that would have been.
And
they would have been like this.
They literally would have picked that detour because it would have been physical and not the puzzle mental challenge. And I would have paid money to see them try and keep that boat afloat.
Oh my God, that would have been hilarious.
They might not have been allowed.
That's
but also probably because there's not really like it's not a huge safety thing, right? Like I feel like they won't let them like go on the harness if they're too big, but like if they're just gonna flip over their canoe comically.
Yeah. I do think that we would have chosen the gently down the stream just based off of reading the clue. That felt a little more straightforward, and I trust my memory skills. And I also, not knowing the kayaking and thinking about the ocean, I would have been probably a little more weary about doing that one.
Yeah, I think with the other side of the detour, the one thing that I think would have been the hardest part is waiting for the boat, because it was like every 15 minutes. But I think the way that the teams went about that, I liked what Ray said in the chat. They kind of had to work together on the sub. Like, how could you communicate with your partner without the other team hearing? So when Kim and Penn and Raquel and Kayla were on there, they obviously helped each other. 4 minds are better than 2. And then we noticed, even though Lulu and Lala and Arun and Natalia were in the back of the pack, they even did the same strategy of like, you two take this side of the sub, you two take this side of the sub. So I think in a way, because of how that boat was designed, teams working together, I think was kind of inevitable.
So I have a couple of thoughts on that though. One is like, Will, you were complaining that like both those teams were working together and like even the back of the pack. When you're in the back of the pack, like there's every reason to band together and make up time. The last thing you want to do is get in each other's way or even just not help each other. And then they're like everyone like the best case scenario is that neither of you get eliminated. You make up time and you surpass someone who's ahead of you, and then it's not even an issue between you. I also like
Ryan and Dusty were struggling, so Arun and Natalia and Lulu and Lala could see that.
So they've eliminated them.
Like, oh, this strong, perceived to win team who's struggling over here. Right. If we work together, we can try to get a lead over them.
Yeah.
But I also think it would have been really like, I don't know if it would be strategic, but I'm also not totally positive you had to work together, because when Alana and I are like when we're communicating, like we can very easily communicate without anyone knowing what we're saying. Like there's a lot of mumbling and like sort of close talking, and it would be such good TV to watch a team just like completely box out another team in that little submarine. and like they would probably get it wrong anyway because they wouldn't be working together. But I would love to see that.
Or like I'm picturing like Michelle and Victoria speaking Vietnamese.
Oh.
They didn't even have to work with another
Yeah,
team.
they wouldn't
They
even
were
have
just
to mumble.
in the language. Yeah, it would be perfect. I mean, yeah, I think if you
Or
have like a
speaking,
secret,
Cajun.
Yeah, literally. I guess I would have probably advocated for, if we were at the bottom of the pack and there was another team, throwing them off, trying to give them misinformation if we said we were working together, to put ourselves ahead and make sure that we're safe.
Right.
Trying to feed them things that were incorrect, more so than working with the team if I was in the back of the pack, just for security, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen any team this season give misinformation or even withhold information.
No, that camaraderie's too alive with everything that they've gone through, I think.
And well, and that comment right there is also very valid, that Lulu and Lala, not to down Arun and Natalia, I do think Lulu and Lala could outrun those two. So it is, if you think about it that way, it's also beneficial for Lulu and Lala knowing that they can beat them in a foot race. And they did. They literally did.
Yeah. I think that the teams working together at that detour was smart. And I think, a lot of people are wondering if those rules were being implemented this season where teams weren't allowed to help each other. And I think we kind of got a glimpse of it. Like, even though Raquel and Kayla and Kim and Penn were going through that flip book of fish together, Kim and Penn got the answer, but they didn't run over to Raquel and Kayla and say, this is the right list of fish. And they didn't even touch on it. They didn't even talk about it. I think that's that rule that we talked about in our previous recap.
That has been changed.
That once you get your clue and once you are like, this is correct, your race continues, and that means you need to leave the team behind you, and you can't go back.
Which I think it's a strong rule that helps a lot. I mean, there's moments that happened on our season that obviously controversial, but I think it just prevents this like lack of being able to edit the story or edit the episode or even have a good race where the teams actually accomplish something on their own, and it just takes away from the story, I think.
So I don't think that like, we don't know, just to be clear, we don't actually know what the new rule is, right? We heard. I also kind of heard a rumor about that. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if there was no new rule, if things played out exactly the way they did. Because for me, if I'm in the back of the pack, the reason to work with another team is to get the answer. It's not to sort of keep working with them or form an alliance or anything. It's to make up ground, like I was saying before, and close the gap between the teams who are up front. So if you've already worked with Raquel and Kayla, and then it's time to give the answer, you give the answer. If you both miss it, well, then you probably want to work together again to really make sure you get it the next time.
Right.
So I could see that being like, at least for me, that's where I would draw the line. Like, I have no reason to share the correct answer once I've given it. The other thing is that I think the race could, and I wish they would, but they haven't yet, implement some things so that the answers for the different teams are different. I don't think that would be that different, right? Like, you could say these are kind of like these are your fish.
Good luck.
That's what in Trinidad and Tobago, none of the combinations were the same, and none of the order of the colors on the fish were the same for any team. Everyone had their own unique fish.
For 31, when they were in Detroit and had to do the combination, was the combination the same? I don't know, but that's another way you could do it, where obviously similar to the fish, the combination is the same. I don't know if you could do like different words and stuff, but you could definitely do, like, say you're on that gently down the stream and there's two paths. There's a red path and a blue path. You memorize the blue, you memorize the red, and they're not the same for the team.
Or there's two boats. Yeah.
I mean, they could even just have multiple sets of fish, and each fish could have, like, our fish would only be the fish with like a green tail, and then everything else about each fish is different. Done.
That gives you more
information.
Yeah,
It
no,
gets even
but that's
more tricky
but
for
that's an
teams
added element of like
to really
Really?
focus
Yeah.
on the detail of the fish. Like that one did have a green tail. That's my fish.
you almost want to force people to have to ride the boat multiple times. And I
Right.
know that they had to ride it twice, but that's just because they didn't really memorize it in any order. They just kind of was like, here's the fish. But you want that, like, not failure, but you want teams to have to really problem solve what they're doing. So I think it would be interesting.
And Ray, that's a really good point. I mean, obviously, season 32 aired after the shutdown. So I think because of the fan response to a lot of things that played out on our season, they were able to change that rule or adjust it. But you're right. Yeah. Natalia helped after she did the bagpipes challenge in Scotland. So I like that they're not bringing light to the rule. I mean, there's a lot of rules that we as racers know about that like a general audience, like they don't need to know. Like they just don't. So
yeah. And I think it's like everyone, I think we've talked about this before, but we want the teams, like when we're on the race and also racers today, to play to their best advantage with the rules that they have to win. Now, if the rules allow them to form this super alliance or share information or whatever, well, then I want them to be taking advantage of that, but it's not as entertaining. So it's on production, as far as I'm concerned, to change the rules. And I think they could do a lot more. Like, I really don't think there's that many situations where they don't have an alternative to give it all the teams' answers being the same. And that's just like such a strong motivator socially, strategically, to share information. Socially, when Aparna and I were working on sauerkraut in Germany,
right.
you know, like I didn't have to give her the answer. It's really hard not to. And, you know, you have to be able to look someone in the eye and say bye. So a rule, though, you know, if there was like a penalty at stake and I would have been like made to wait 15 minutes if they caught me doing it, which they would have, then I would have easily done that. And then you would have gotten to see me leaving Aparna, you know, in the dust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it only happened in our season maybe 2 or 3 times. It didn't happen that often. They're like getting your clue and then helping a team. That part of it, that feels like irresponsible sometimes. Like the hung thing, like I wouldn't have done that.
No, but at the same time,
I mean, wait a minute. It happened sauerkraut. It happened in India, right? Where the boys like went where the beards helped folks, and then when Aparna and Ishwar came along, they were like, no. You all helped at the final pit stop in Philippines, right? Shared information there. I feel like it was kind of routine by the time it was like, you know, picking folks off prior to Mine 5 and then prior to Core 3. I think someone should do an investigation so that everyone can know exactly how much help was given at which times.
Yeah, like let's do an in-depth, like deep dive on the dynamics of season 32.
Yeah, I think we could. We
might have
to do some interviews, forensic investigation. You know, and then everyone can just know what happened. What happened? We were there.
Yeah.
60 minutes.
Yeah. I'm curious if because I know the teams got to watch our season.
I know.
And
I have so many questions for the teams this season and how watching our season would have affected theirs in any capacity after the restart. I really am just so curious. I
was sort of also thinking, I forgot about this, but right. If you had watched our season, seen how irritated people were by the helping, would you have been, you know, reluctant to, or would you have seen how effective it was and done the same? And I think maybe it was more of that, because remember this backlash about the alliance, that's social media, right? That's Twitter and Facebook. That's not the majority of viewers. We don't actually know what the majority of viewers think. They might also hate the alliance, but we don't know that. And Alana and I this weekend were we did like a pregnancy photo shoot.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see.
Yeah, so that's a little Easter egg there. But the photographer, so we're in Oregon, and the photographer who Alana found, because we were like at a cabin with family, so we tried to find someone nearby. She had watched the show. She knew us. She said we were her favorite team. I mean, you know, it was nice to say, but she didn't say a single word about the alliance other than her question was like, was there really drama between, you know, us all? And my answer was, you know, not personal, but yeah, race strategy drama, sure. Like, you know, went after us, and we were like, what the heck? But not personal, right? It's game. And it was just really interesting for us. First of all, it's the first time literally in our whole lives we've been recognized from the show. But so that was kind of fun. Except for when we're standing next to the two of you. And we get recognized. But the second thing was, it was just really interesting to hear from like someone who I don't think's on Amazing Race Facebook, Amazing Race Twitter, just watches with her family.
Yeah, I mean,
I honestly think it's just the word.
Diverse range of opinions.
It's just the word alliance, I think, in the race is not a very common word, but teams helping teams, I think, is common. It's just not on the forefront of everyone's mind because the word alliance isn't attached to it. I think that, to me, is the big difference. Is if it's an official alliance and teams are working together constantly or using it to knock out other teams, as a lot of viewers perceive to be the case, then that's no, bad. But this season, with how often these teams are like, let's wait for each other or let's drive here together, I haven't seen any backlash. And I keep saying the only difference is the word alliance is not attached to it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only difference.
Yeah. I mean, I am thinking about like the navigation piece. Like, if there's so few teams left, it just seems like such a. I want to see what Ray's saying. Season 4. I was like 3. Tying for first. Oh yeah, my mom was asking this because she's not a very like competitive person, and so she was like, "What if teams just cross the finish line holding hands?" And I was like, "Mom," but I was like, if I'm about to drive like across Corsica, it's risky to go by yourself. Like, so I'm not so sure that that's like. I can see why you might want to band together just to get from place to place and then be like, okay, now it's on that we arrived. And that would be something that would be much harder to enforce, like no helping, right? Because like it's like on Tour de France, like people drafting. So most of you probably know, but just in case, right? You don't take the lead because then you have a lot of wind resistance, and then you ride behind the leader, and then you actually alternate so that you're sharing that, and it's just like a given that you'll like put distance between you at challenging moments. And so I think that kind of drafting in transit to me is very different from like sharing information.
Yeah, valid.
I agree. I think it is so hard to navigate when you're alone. I mean, we had plans in Paris to follow and to kind of navigate together with Madison and Riley. Obviously,
we didn't get out of the airport.
And also with Michelle and Victoria.
Neither did we for a little bit.
Like, it just didn't work out that way. And then I think the same thing when we were in Berlin, when we had those Trabants, we were all kind of following each other, and then that also didn't work out. But those are the only 2 times on our season where we had that as an option.
Yeah.
But it's always, to me, in anybody's best interest to just be able to see a team that, and if you can't do it, that's fine. But it's always beneficial to be able to know that there's either one person in front of you or behind you.
Like, to me,
especially when you're driving a long distance,
it puts you at ease a little bit more to know like that you're not in the back of the pack, or that you're not like lost and you're like, oh my God, we're last. You know, because in Paris, coming back from Chantilly, going to that Bercy place or whatever it was, we were by ourselves. We didn't see any team for a good hour and a half to 2 hours. So like that was so stressful because it's like, well, who knows where all the other teams are out in Paris? You know, they could be passing us right now.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have one, I think, team inside.
I think the two of you deserve a trip to Paris. I think you need to do France again.
No, wait, didn't y'all go since we went on the show?
Yeah, we did. And we actually we ended up going to a wedding in the south of France. And we went to an island off of France called Porquerolles. Don't speak French, so apologies, but it is there are no cars on the island. And I mention it because it's near Corsica. So it was that like French Mediterranean feel. There was no maggot cheese, but yeah, we loved it there. Like we would go. That's actually when we found out Alana was pregnant. And so she couldn't eat like the stinky cheese or the wine, so that's kind of a bummer. But I'd eat extra. But yeah, we loved being there. Like I kind of expected it to be, I don't know, more touristy, more cliche, like, you know, check it off the list. But I would go back in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love.
We need a France redo.
I'm just, as you were talking about navigating, though, I just want to kind of double down on the drafting thing, because when Raquel and Kayla said they would let Raquel and Kayla said they would let Kim and Penn go first.
Yeah. Right.
That's just strategy. Like you're not
100%.
going to lose more than 10 seconds on them, and they can do the hard work of navigating. And if you see them make a weird turn, you pass them, right? Like I don't really see that as cooperation.
It's
right.
I mean, that happened with Arun and Natalia and Lulu and Lala. Arun and Natalia kept going after Lulu and Lala pulled off to ask for directions, and Arun and Natalia passed them.
Well, even this episode, Kim and Penn took the wrong turn, and Raquel and Kayla got ahead of them to go to the overlap.
It's super strategic, and I agree.
I think, James, I don't know if you remember in Survivor, I'm pushing back on your claim about like the only difference being the word alliance, because I don't know if you remember in Survivor, like a few seasons ago, Jeff, or all of the castaways and Jeff started talking about things not in terms of alliances, but in terms of voting blocks. I get that sense where they're like, okay, we're the top two. Let's move forward. Let's add distance between us and the other teams. Like we all, just like I was saying about the teams in the back, we all benefit from that. But I don't get the sense that there's any loyalty whatsoever between episodes. And that's not to say that alliances are bad. I just think what YouTube pulled off is different. Like you saw teams you liked working with, you made a commitment to them. You sometimes did not, I don't know how many times you personally did. Again, we need an investigation, but you know, teams were genuinely sort of proactively waiting for each other. I remember when I learned that France, I think on the way to Berlin. Yeah. Before we got on the train to Berlin, you all disappeared and were in a hotel Googling stuff, right? Like took hours to kind of study and research together, where the rest of us were like being bozos in a cafe. So like, I think that I get the sense that it's on a different level. Like this is not lasting beyond a challenge or an episode at most. What do you think about that?
I think it's hard because I feel like the same teams always kind of seem to always be helping each other. Does that make sense? Like,
I want to go to the start. That could be the start times.
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing about the start times that I'm curious if there's been any viewer criticism about. Well, you know, two teams leaving at the front of the pack together. It's obviously advantageous for these two teams to be like, well, let's maintain our lead. We're leaving together. Let's drive here together. I mean, that to me should be a tough criticism from viewers that don't like teams working together.
I mean, this will be the second or third time that it's Raquel and Kayla and Kim and Penn in the first group to leave together.
This would be resolved if the challenges were if they couldn't work together as much, or if they were just harder. I mean, or like this is where I said, I don't know, maybe cutthroat's not the right word. You know, tag me later with a better explanation of the word cutthroat. But they are doing the challenges seemingly with ease, and they seem like challenging challenges, but either they're less challenging than other seasons, or these teams are just like, you know, here to play. And so the result is that the start times don't make a huge difference. Like, one of the most fun things about the race often is when a team gets stuck for hours and hours and hours.
Yep, I agree.
I personally love it when that happens to me.
Yeah. It adds a layer of drama to the show. Team struggle. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think I would be shocked if people wouldn't have worked together even more had U-turns or yields or those social, I guess.
Oh, right. As soon as there's a
things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, our goal of like working with other teams was we don't want to be U-turned, we don't want to be yielded. How can we get everybody to like us and not want to do that to us? So I think that level of like working together in an alliance for this season isn't able to come to fruition because there's nothing that's forcing them to bond in a way that, like Raquel and Kayla not helping Lulu and Lala at that one in the previous episode, and then now them passing up Kim and Penn, there's not going to be a consequence for them screwing them over. Yeah. Like, they're not going to be mad at them because they can't do anything about it.
Is there going to be a U-turn next? Like, there's got to be a U-turn.
I know Callum in the chat asked any thoughts, lack of yields or U-turns. I mean, I personally don't think that we'll see any yields this season, obviously. I think it would have already happened.
The yields, no.
U-turns, I don't think a U-turn is going to happen at all this season.
Why?
I don't see it. I feel like it would have been promoted in the promo for next week. I think there's going to be an elimination next week just because there's a non-elimination this week. And then so at Final Four, there being a U-turn, it'll be a waste of a U-turn because more than likely it's going to be another non-elimination because it seems to be going non-elimination, elimination. I just don't think structurally on how this race was designed with the pandemic, there will be U-turns.
I wonder if it was just like, I hope, honestly, just because I like trust the producers to make a good show. It kind of seems like maybe they just couldn't because of something related to the pandemic, because it's so true. Like this, like that, what is this? They're trying to be Ryan and Dusty. Yeah. There's so much drama from stuff like that you can get. Like, our season changed so dramatically as soon as, like, we really thought, like, I know people were, not only you two, like everyone was like thinking, oh, these teams are a threat. Like, who do we want to work with? Like, now and then, even if it's not like a big alliance, but the moment that U-turn happened, it just changes everything. That's what we're missing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say names, but someone from season 33 and I were talking, and they had even said, had our season been similarly designed as yours, or if there was a social elements like if I was on 32 and there was yields and U-turns, I think I would have played it the same way, just because there's a lot of social elements all at once. Like getting yielded, don't want to piss the team off, you don't want to be U-turned. So there's a lot more social dynamics at play our season than any other season, just because we had both of those iconic, amazing race advantages at play. So I just think a lot of it also has to do with like how it's designed. But
I do love that Ryan and Dusty are, I think there's 2 third places in a row, just to make it, I just don't enjoy it when one team wins like almost all the episodes. Like, it's realistic, right? Like, Justin and Diana, Rachel and David, like, they were legitimately just dominating.
Right.
But I just love a comeback. Love an underdog. Like before the game today, I'm just gonna Google who is not favored to win, and I'll root for them. Football is life.
Football. I think that a U-turn would have been interesting this season because the past 2 episodes we had Kim and Penn and Raquel and Kayla in the lead against the boys. Would they have used it? Would they have yielded or U-turned?
Rusty.
I think Rusty. Hashtag Rusty. I think you have to at this point. Absolutely. And we would
have that changed the entire course of the game?
And I know there's also a lot of criticism on Twitter that people are saying, oh, I like that there's no U-turns this season, But I feel like when there's a team,
that?
there's people on Twitter who are like, we hate U-turns. We'd rather teams win on their own merit or whatever. Why did they use them?
Half the time, I'm confused if people actually like watching the show.
Literally. But I will say my argument to that is, if a team you love is always at the back of the pack, let's say Haley and Kaylin, for instance, right? And they somehow pass us, Madison and Riley, Gary and D'Angelo, Hung and G, whoever. Let's say there was a U-turn in India. You sure as hell would want them to use that U-turn. Because if they didn't and they were eliminated, then you'd be upset. But if they did and they U-turned us or Madison and Riley, it would be great TV because it gives someone who's an underdog the opportunity to make a move.
Akbar and Sherry wouldn't have been eliminated.
No, it gives teams an opportunity to just shake up the placements of a race. I think U-turns are so essential to the race.
All right, we need to get James a couple of Bloody Marys, and then Will, you need to videotape him with that monologue, and that should go on.
Yeah.
Go off, James.
U-turns are essential to the race. I know people don't like them, but I agree.
Hundo.
It's so important. Oh my God. Okay, y'all, we haven't even talked about the roadblock yet this episode. I mean, and I love that people in the chat have really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you everyone for engaging and sharing your thoughts and asking us questions. And let's talk about this roadblock really quick. So for this roadblock, teams were given the choice to, what was the clue that they had to read? I don't even remember.
Who's feeling knotted up?
Who's feeling knotted up? That's right. They had to pretty much repair a net. It seemed pretty straightforward to me. I don't know about y'all. What did y'all think about this roadblock?
I'll be honest, I had no idea what they were doing.
I mean, hello, I'm sitting here trying to read my notes, and I'm like, I don't know.
No, like, you would watch the guy do it, and then they would go in like so, and I'd be like, I really just don't know what the goal is with the tool and like the knot. Like, what are you actually doing? I had no idea what they were doing.
They just had to repair holes in a fishing net.
I think.
Yeah, but like how?
The clue could have been like, who's ready or not. I think they kind of dropped the ball.
I like that.
You know, I think they kind of dropped the ball on that. I thought this was really cool. I love a knot challenge. I learned a bunch of knots and then forgot them all at one point. But like I think that kind of like precision, like it's not sewing, right? It's more mechanical. Like you're actually taking two loose ends and trying to make them one. And there's probably multiple ways you could do it also. Like, I bet you could have passed. There we go. I bet you could have passed the challenge if you made like an effective knot that was maybe slightly different. So I like that kind of, I mean, maybe not, you never know, but like you get the point, right? Like the judge is a fisher person who wants to make sure the net works and is reliable. So yeah, who's not sitting out this challenge could have been the clue.
Literally, I all these puns are cracking me up.
Feeling naughty.
Ready or not, here it comes. Or
yes.
Who's the naughtiest? These are so great. Yeah, I feel like this roadblock was so straightforward. Obviously, there's no way a team was going to help another team with this because everyone just seems so bunched up. And usually at this point in the leg, you're like, a pit stop's coming. But it just seemed pretty straightforward. I personally didn't think it was like anything exciting.
So it's occurring to me that, I think someone mentioned this in the chat, I think that we might be realizing that they did make the challenges a little easier so that the racers would stay closer. It doesn't really make it easier to race. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say it's like an easy season, but they could have made 10 holes, and I bet they would have given us 10 holes in those nets just to see, because they don't mind. Like, they love it when a team is 8 hours behind. That makes great TV. But I don't believe that they could have done that, like, logistically this season.
Because they're trying. I think they obviously are trying to move as a unit. I agree. I think that's a huge, probably like the biggest reason why they're so close together the whole time.
Which is why they should just thrown in a U-turn. Just like do the GD challenge again. Just like go on. You know?
Especially for the detours that are literally right next to each other.
Right. Well, that's why
that
and imagine a U-turn after the mules and then them having to go back to redo the cheese. Rusty.
Basically what they did.
Rusty and Ryan.
You can say Rusty.
Rusty and Diane.
in full disclosure, I don't dislike Dusty and Ryan.
No.
That is not anything related to what I would say about them wanting to get U-turned. They're just one of the strongest.
They were dominating. Yeah.
They are definitely dominating.
But also we hear every team in every episode being like, we're ahead of Ryan and Dusty, or, oh my gosh, where are Ryan and Dusty? Like, I think these teams would crave to use a U-turn on them. 100%.
I just want it for my own personal entertainment.
I do think that we are seeing a little bit of, and I don't think they would disagree or take this personally. Hung and Chi were so dominant at the beginning, and the reality is that they did stop coming in first every episode and seeming so invincible. And I think the exact same thing is happening with #Rusty. 2 third places in a row, not because of anyone U-turning them or sabotaging them. And Kim and Penn, I think their average placement is probably better at this point. What do you think?
Between the two teams?
Yeah, like Ryan and Dusty. I'm just curious. I mean, I think it's at least close.
One thing I think is interesting about Ryan and Dusty is they've never fallen below 3rd place. They've always been top 3, even before the restart.
Mm-hmm.
So I think statistically they have been perceived the strongest. But I think Kim and Penn have been in the top 3 ever since leg 3. So ever since Scotland. They have 3 first place finishes as well.
And
I think Kim and Penn are finding their stride. Like they are finally just, I feel like, surrendering themselves to the stress of the race and be like, whatever happens. Let's just roll with it. Let's be a little bit more flexible. And
I think you got to peak at the right time.
Yeah, they're peaking. Kim and Penn are peaking for sure. Where Ryan and Dusty, I think, are starting to get in their head a lot more, and it's causing them to not perform as well.
One of my favorite moments was when Kim and Penn were eating the maggots. Ryan and Dusty's placements are better. All right, I don't know. I want a number. If anyone has the average placements, I'll do it after. Yeah, but when they were eating the maggots, and Kim was like singing and dancing and talking and about like, oh my God, these maggots, what are we? I can't believe we're eating these. And Penn's just like, why would you talk about it? just eat it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
The one reason why I like Kim and Penn so much is because they're very honest and vulnerable about their emotions as they're on the race. They're not trying to mask it as like, we're having this great time and we're strong and we're going to keep doing well and we have never failed and blah, blah, blah. Whereas I think some other teams are just kind of that toxic positivity at all time without recognizing their own weaknesses and trying to grow from them. Whereas Kim and Penn are literally super honest about where they're struggling and probably having fantastic conversations in the hotel room about what they can do better on the next leg or what they can improve upon. So I just have really enjoyed watching them because they're super just honest about the entire experience.
Yeah.
And that's almost like a talent. Like I know that, I mean, just thinking back, like I wish we could have been more like that. I don't think we were. Oh, there we go. All right. Ryan and Dusty are 1.8. It's close though. And the momentum thing, I think, is what we're noticing that Kim and Penn are hitting their stride. I don't think we were. It's hard not to lie to yourself, I guess, when you're thinking about it and when someone else asks you. I think a lot of it is like, it can be toxic positivity, or it can just be like trying to stay positive and be positive for each other. But if you can kind of go even a level beyond that and be honest and positive, it's I think what they're doing is pretty impressive on a relationship level. I do still think that because they're so experienced in front of cameras, it gives them a major advantage in terms of like how to interact personally. Like for us, it was just so overwhelming to be in front of the cameras, to be on the race, to be on a show, to be traveling like that that it throws off all your normal relationship behavior, problem solving behavior, working together behavior. And for Kim and Penn, this is just like their next screen to be in front of. I mean, I'm curious what they would say about that. Like, I get it. It's not YouTube. Like it's the race. It's totally different. You're not in control. But
you still have a way to conduct yourself or like carry yourself in front of the camera. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's fair. Well, they're clearly crushing it. This is now their third first place on this season. So congratulations to Kim and Penn. They won a trip to Turkey from Travelocity. But the last two teams to get to the pit stop were Lulu and Lala and Arun and Natalia. And it from the edit looked like a foot race. So I'm very curious to know how much of a foot race it actually was. So Lulu and Lala got fourth place. Arun and Natalia were last. But, luckily for Arun and Natalia, it was a non-elimination leg. This is the second non-elimination leg that they've had. I know that Phil even made a comment about I think this might be a new record. You've had the most second chances. And I think that's fair to say. I mean, they were originally eliminated from the race very early on. They were brought back for the restart. So that's a huge second chance in and of itself. And then now you have two non-eliminations. You've surpassed Akbar and Sherry, who were never eliminated but before the restart. So I think it's fair to say that this might be a new record of a team getting the most second chances. But I think that, with the asterisk of the fact that they were already eliminated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. They're not I still feel, I don't know if this is a bias, but besides their navigation troubles, they seem pretty capable. They definitely don't have a talent for race challenges, like a special gift. The fact that it was striking to me that the second submarine, was just totally ineffective at working together and coming up with a strategy. Like the way the first group knew to say Jamaica, France, whatever else they were saying, just everyone remember a couple. And then the second submarine was just so chaotic. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say they've performed great as racers, but they don't strike me as throwaways. And yet they keep getting eliminated.
I think they just aren't thinking through the challenges and potentially just thinking that the challenges are easier than they are.
I was going to say, do you think they're overthinking? Do you think they're panicking or not?
I would say underthinking of how complex, you actually need to strategize and figure out the best way for you to do a challenge before doing it. Diving into something head first can sometimes work, but a lot of the times, you are already setting yourself up for failure. And I think that's happened with them a lot, not asking for directions at the right time because you trust yourself enough to do it. Well, last time you did that, it didn't work out. So why didn't you make the adjustment this time? So it's those types of things where they're not making changes quick enough to critically think about how to do something better or to improve upon their skills.
One of my biggest challenges, and I think I would still have this challenge, is overthinking. And what I mean by that is and Trabant comes to mind. There was this big instruction manual on the Trabant. And I wanted to read the whole thing before moving, right? Because you got to read your clue, right, folks? And and no one else did that. I don't think. I mean, all those other Trabants were just gone, right? And Alana was like, "We got to go," and I was like, "But I'm reading my clue. I want to know how to operate this thing. I'm pretty sure once I read the whole thing, then I'll just know what to do, and we'll be good." And I think she said, you can't do that. We just have to go. And it turned out that, everyone could basically figure out how to read their Trabant. You had to kind of know where to draw the line. She was right. If I had sat there for another 10 minutes, that would have been more of a problem. It's better to stay with the crowd. So that's kind of how that one worked out. But in general, it's so challenging to know how much is too much and how much is too little in terms of getting your bearings. And I think there's a talent to that Arun and Natalia don't have. And I also think I'm not the strongest at that.
Yeah, it's that like, yeah.
I like the observation. I do. I think that,
It's a hard
thing to prepare for too.
Yeah, that transition of like, I need to understand what I'm doing before the switch of like, okay, I get it enough to where I'm just going to try and do it. That's challenging.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's too late in the race for Arun and Natalia, unfortunately, to like find their stride. Like, I don't see them getting into the top 3 at this point. I mean, it would be
Not
a
with how
miracle
strong- not
if
with
they
how
do,
strong the other
and I would
three
be
are.
thrilled for them because I know that they are fans of the race. I just don't see it happening
Interesting.
with how consistent the other teams around them have been. But
well, someone needs to get tripped up, though. I mean, that's where we come back to like the challenges feeling on balance a little easier, which like wouldn't be so much of an issue if you didn't combine it with the start times being staggered. If you had one thing or another, honestly, like maybe it would make sense to like have like less staggered start, because it would be a bummer for there to be absolutely no difference in start time. And also, by the way, I don't really understand why people are complaining about the staggered start times, because isn't the standard approach to have people depart, spaced out by when they arrived?
It goes to show like you should place higher rather than just like, as long as I'm
Like,
not
there's a
eliminated.
benefit.
Yeah.
For our
I
season,
like the staggered start times.
For our season, everything was equalized. Every single episode, minus going to Paris.
In airports.
That was, yeah. 15 minutes. Every single episode was equalized where we all left the airport at the same time.
So it didn't matter what place you got.
Immediately, we shifted to like, oh, as long as I'm not last, it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter because we're all starting at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas this season, they're forced to place higher to get a better start, which I like more.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot there because I totally agree with you about like how it's playing out. What I would just add is that we were staggered in our starts, but then we would get a bottleneck at an airport. And in this case, they're also staggered in their starts. Maya and Amy. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Not to mention the goat boys from season 20 something.
Yeah.
We are this season. They are staggered in their starts. They don't have flights, barely ever.
Right.
And so that airport bottleneck, which is like seemingly, some of our flights were so big. There's not going to be 2 flights from Paraguay to France. So I don't know. I just think that like it's more of a bummer that our season was getting bottlenecked to airports than that their season is doing these structured stagger starts. And that to me just adds to the sense that so much of the design of this season is because of COVID. They don't want people to be more than a couple hours apart. And they made the challenges a little easier because of that. And I just think the 15 to 20 minute staggering is too much given the ease that these teams are just ripping through these challenges.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Yeah, just give them like 5 minutes even, right? Like if each team left like 5 minutes apart, even 2 minutes apart, just something to give the leader, they deserve a little bit of
help or some kush.
Yeah.
I do wish that there were speed bumps though for the non-elimination legs on this season, just to have that added element. And sure, I know that people would argue that, oh, well, they're leaving 30 minutes after the first group leaves or 15 after the second. Some people would argue that their speed bumps could take up to an hour, So I feel like speed bumps are another essential part of the race that I feel like we're not getting this season.
Is if they're going to make it condensed though, like I feel like this, like we've been kind of chatting about this on and off, and kind of as we see more of the season, it's starting to, I feel, kind of make more sense. And maybe I'm totally off on this, but like they don't want speed bumps because that would increase the gap, right? But like, why not a teeny tiny speed bump? Like it would just, you can't downsize parts of the race and not downsize others, or like eliminate others, because then it's not, you don't get some of those dynamics. I feel like we have to mention, which has come up on podcasts before, but Someone mentioned the blondes in the chat, Haley and Kaylin, and I think, Will, you said, there's no point of finishing in first because you get bottlenecked at the airport. Well, there's one more element, which is that if you finish 8 hours behind everyone else, then you don't get woken up in your hotel until 8 hours later. And then you arrive at the airport 45 minutes before the flight arrives, where the rest of the team have been sleeping on each other's bags.
Yeah, they got to sleep longer. They didn't have to stay out in the Paris train station freezing their asses off.
And then snooze party in their fluffy blankets.
God. Yeah. And then they get creepy gifts from men in airports because they're so beautiful.
I know. They're just like refreshed and ready. Yes. Yes.
So funny.
That was,
If I had had more time to freshen up, maybe I would have received gifts from strangers in airports.
Maybe not the gifts you want.
Well, we may not get a U-turn next week, and there may not be a speed bump, but based on the preview for next week's episode, we see that Raquel and Kayla are struggling, and then also Lulu and Lala happen to show up at the pit stop, which either was before they got their next clue or before they even did a challenge. I don't know, but they're going to be traveling to Greece next week, where they're going to be tested on their spelling and memory skills. I'm so excited to see how this next episode plays out. And another thing, too, I think is interesting is the roadblock situation. Like, I feel like Raquel has done so many roadblocks. It's not evenly balanced. And I get that there was a reset when the restart happened. But I feel like if there was a reset with the roadblocks, they should have adjusted the rules where it was like you couldn't do more than 3 before your teammate has to do the rest, because Kayla's just kind of getting a free pass and not having to do any roadblocks. But I mean, like, in comparison to Raquel,
this will be her 5th.
This will be her 5th. Yeah, it's so unbalanced, the roadblock situation. But
yeah, that makes sense. I feel like there's so much about the race design that they were just doing on the fly for understandable reasons, but also that's a fair criticism. Yeah, we want to see Kayla.
And I don't want to discredit. I mean, I'm just so thrilled that the race was even back, and I'm so glad that these racers were able to finish out this chapter and have closure to their season. And I'm enjoying it for what it is. And I think it's very clear, in my opinion, who the stronger teams are at this point. I think we have a good feeling as to who the top 3 might even be at this point. But Leo, who do you think at this point has the best chance of winning?
I think Kim and Penn. I mean, I think that if I had to place a bet, I think that they are more resilient than Ryan and Dusty in terms of not getting frazzled, and they've also just been working together, as far as I know, for a lot longer. And then I love Raquel and Kayla as a team. I think they could definitely pull it out. Ryan and Dusty obviously could definitely pull it out. But if I had to bet, it would be Kim and Penn.
Yeah, I think Kim and Penn, to me, now have kind of taken that spot of the team to be the most perceived to win. That's the perception. Ryan and Dusty, I think, are just hitting too many bumps where I don't know if they're going to recover as well.
But again, the race is not a collective, here's how I did the whole season.
No, totally.
It's the final leg where,
that's the only leg that matters.
I mean, we can all kind of assume that it's going to be Raquel and Kayla, Kim and Ryan and Dusty. Those are the 3 strongest teams. If it's not, I would be thrilled and excited and would cause, some interesting dynamics. But out of those 3, they've all done so well every different challenges that it all just depends on what they're presented with, that any of them could win.
Well, you see, and that's why I'm not losing hope for Raquel and Kayla. I mean, we've seen so many times in the edit, an all-female team hasn't won in so many seasons, or oh my gosh, we've been furloughed. They're in it for the money. I mean, as much as they're in it for the experience, they're back because of the restart and being furloughed. They're in it for the money.
Yeah.
And they keep hammering that in the edit to us as a viewer to root for them. They lost their jobs. They need this. They move back in with their parents. And I just think that Raquel and Kayla, even though they haven't gotten a first place finish, We've heard that this episode too, that, oh, you know, we may not haven't gotten a first yet, but the only one that matters is the finish.
Yep.
And Jason and Amy on season 23 said that a few episodes. We have yet to get our first place, and the only one that matters is the last, and they ended up winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
James,
I
feel
think
like
they're telling them a shot.
you're making the argument, which I agree with, of who's most likely to win based on the edit, which I think is a different game.
Yeah,
You're right.
I was
If
not
we're not
going there.
If we're not going on the edit, I think Kim and Penn for sure are the front runners.
I was not going down that hole, but we are there now.
Oh my God. Well, that wraps up our recap for episode 7. I loved the episode, and I'm looking forward to next week. I thought it was fun, minus the roadblock. I think the roadblock was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it was one of my least favorite from all 7.
I appreciate the honesty, babe.
Thank you.
Leo, any final thoughts before we wrap up the recap?
Not really. I watched with my family, so it was a fun one for me. Everyone was cackling and hollering, especially at oh, here's a final thought, actually. So my family, you know, they know Kim and Penn are YouTube stars, and so they're like a little less excited about the possibility of them winning. They're like, oh, they're just like looking for attention, or they you know, they're like hamming everything up, right? So it's always like, oh, there's Kim and Penn again, and of course they're doing really well, but they laugh so hard at Kim and Penn, like on a regular basis. So I'm like, guys, seems like you love Kim and Penn, or at least they make you laugh. But yeah, I'm curious what other folks feel about that, right? Like everyone's always saying, why can't we get more regular people on the show? But those like people with sort of unusual personalities who end up getting a lot of attention because they're show people, they're pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, they feel pretty regular comparatively to previous social media personalities that they had on the show. They feel the most like a little more honest about their struggles and the race.
Yeah, and their persona feels very genuine. Like I don't know if Penn has like another way of being.
Yeah.
In private.
God. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Right. Ray goes, thanks, Leo. What are regular people?
I don't know. Maybe people on a show, I guess.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching on Super Bowl Sunday. We hope that you have a great week. We'll be back next weekend as well for another recap. Leo, you're more than welcome to join whenever you are up for it.
Thank you for having me.
It was so fun to talk about this episode with you. And Leo, where can everyone find you on social media? Plug yourself.
Ooh, okay. Leo E.B. Folsom, everywhere. So, yep, find me, follow me, give me a hard time, and love it all.
I need to see these photos of your pregnancy photo shoot.
Send them
whenever you have them.
We'll send them for sure. We might be all right. Easter egg is pajamas are involved.
Yes.
Oh my God, so cute. Are they green?
Love it. Oh yeah,
Maybe.
are they green?
That's it. No more info. No more details.
Oh, I can't wait to see them. Oh my gosh. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.